April 13th, 2019 was a Saturday, and it was a rainy, stormy Saturday across much of the Tar Heel state. However, the proceedings of the North Carolina Republican Party 13th Congressional District Convention were quite satisfactory. The convention was held at the Davie County Courthouse in Mocksville. The venue was okay. The registration area was on a long hallway. It was a little small, but everybody got through fairly efficiently. Parking, however, for this venue was a little bit on the low side, as I had to circle the I got there like right when registration opened, and I had to circle the courthouse grounds to find a spot. So parking, as far as a district convention, could it work at this venue? Most of the time, maybe, but I certainly would not have a big statewide executive committee meeting at this particular at this particular spot. Okay. This convention, the call to order was at 11:01 a.m. So we were supposed to start at 11, but it was just about on time. And I'll let you be the judge of whether or not 11:01 is late or is 11:01 on time. I'll again let you decide. But we started off, as a lot of conventions do, with the candidates that are run for office, both as elected office and both as inter-party office. Because if you know anything about conventions, you have to have your registration open for like an hour, okay, and then you close registration. Registration began at 9:45 a.m., went to 10:45, closed at 10:45. The convention started at 11, and the Credentials Committee needs, most of the time, a good 30, at least probably 30 minutes or so to get, make sure this delegate is in the right county and that person is, a registered Republican and legit and everything like that. So the Credentials Committee needs ample time to do their business. That's why these conventions will never start off with the Credentials Committee. They'll always start off with various speakers. Okay. Same thing with the state convention. They'll usually start off with the various auxiliary groups, like your Republican women, your young Republicans, your men's federation, and then go to various candidates. Okay, so our first speaker of the day was Justice Paul Newby, who I've talked a lot. He's been really doing a great job crisscrossing across the state. He's in a lot of other videos. And again, the goal of these videos is to inform you of the proceedings of these county district conventions, but I do not want this to turn into a repeat-a-thon. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to repeat myself. Well, Justice Paul Newby is from Raleigh, and then in the next video I do on County A, Justice Paul Newby's from Raleigh, Justice Paul Newby's from Raleigh, again and again and again, because it gets pretty boring. But anyway, today Justice Paul Newby wanted to talk about April 12th, 1776, as yesterday was the anniversary of that particular event. And on that date, North Carolina was the first state to call for independence out of the 13 colonies. This happened in a little town called Halifax, North Carolina, which I believe is out somewhere east, as far as I know. Then we had Jefferson Griffin, who's another candidate for the state judiciary, speak. And then we had Michael LaPaglia, who I'm really starting to really enjoy listening to, and really, I haven't made any official endorsements in the Secretary of State's race yesterday. There are two other candidates that are running. But if I had to vote right now, yeah, Michael LaPaglia would get my vote. He's talked a lot about his campaign, but today he piggybacked off what Paul Newby had to say about Halifax Day, and that he attended Halifax Day, but the current Secretary of State, who's a Democrat, Elaine Marshall, did not. And LaPaglia said that, if you want to go see how your county has grown and developed over time, he said, go down to your local registered of deeds office. But he said, if you want to see how your state government was created, then you have to attend Halifax Day. And maybe I need to mark that on my calendar. Try to get to that some year. Then we had Deborah Cochran, lieutenant governor candidate, and her speech is very well polished and repetitive. However, I do think she has very good conservative credentials, and as of right now, she is my personal front runner for the lieutenant governor's race. Renee Elmers is also running, and she's a very scary person. Hat tip unsolved mysteries amnesia, that kind of scary person. She is really campaigning in her safe areas. That would be around Johnston and Harnett County. I think I've only seen her once or twice on the convention/campaign trail so far this spring. There's another candidate who just announced out of the Charlotte area, and I'm surprised that he did not attend Mocksville today. Maybe the weather was throwing him a little off, but Scott Stone, that's his name, lieutenant governor candidate, just launched his campaign this past week out of the Charlotte area, so keep your eye on him as well. Ronald Pierce, candidate for insurance commissioner, spoke next. He's become very interesting because you've probably heard about the Robin Hayes indictment situation. Well, the guy who reported Robin Hayes, as well as Lindbergh and John Palermo, who was a former chair of Chatham County Republican Party, the person who reported them to the FBI was the current insurance commissioner, Mike Causey, okay? And Mike Causey's a Republican, okay? So you have Ronald Pierce, who the first month in March, all of March, he was going from county to county. I think I saw him at all 12 of the conventions I was at. I know that. He probably went to a whole lot more, too. But look, Ronald Pierce has been really hitching his campaign wagon to this whole thing of I hate corruption. There's so much corruption in the Department of Insurance, okay? And yet, at the very end of March, we get hit with this bombshell of Robin Hayes was indicted, and guess who cleaned up the corruption? Well, it was actually the current insurance commissioner, Mike Causey. So you have a situation here. Mike Causey cleaned up corruption, yet you have a candidate, Ronald Pierce, who has campaigned for the same office in the same political party, who's saying that no, the corruption is not cleaned up. But I will say that Ronald Pierce, at least as of today, he did not mention anything about Mike Causey and how Mike Causey, cleaned up the Robin Hayes corruption scenario. There was no mention of that. He just basically said the same thing he's been saying since March 1st, which is, I'm pissed off. The Department of Insurance doesn't protect the little guy, they protect corporations. And he even said today he won't accept any money from corporations. It's all, donations from small, you and me, Jane and June taxpayer. Okay. No, I'm trying to keep an open mind on that insurance commission race. I have no idea who I'm going to vote for. Nor do I have to make a decision on that for another 11 months until the March 2020 primary. Both of these candidates seem to be very good. So we'll have to see what happens. Okay. Next, we have the very great 98%. Is it 97 or 98% conservative review score? But anyway, he's done an outstanding job in Washington, D.C. And that is the great Representative Ted Budd. And, he basically talked about how it's been very difficult working with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker and the Democrats being the majority, but he was able to pass a Financial Technology Protection Act, which is going to help bring more jobs to the USA and really help out with this cryptocurrency and Baywell's protect, financial technology and keep it away from hackers. And this actually passed Ted Budd's bill. Okay, Ted Budd, the 97% conservative review score, his legislation passed the House unanimously. Okay, so that right there says that, there's so much talk in the media about how there's so much gridlock in Washington, and yet we just found out today from Representative Ted Budd that he had a bill pass the House 435-0. There you go, right? And then we had Dale Folwell, the current state treasurer, who is a man who is, if you think Ted Budd is doing a good job, well, Dale Folwell was doing a marvelous job as state treasurer. He mentioned that the state pension plan, back in the late 70s, there were 248 people over the age of 90 who were receiving state pension benefits. Well, that number today is now 7,300 people over the age of 90 who are receiving state pension benefits. That's a lot, and that's a little scary too. Of course, the big thing you probably heard in another video of mine is that our state health plan in North Carolina is behind only Illinois in terms of insolvency. And Dale Folwell he's getting a lot of heat from Democrats, but he's unfortunately getting a lot of heat from Republicans. And he had this clear price and project legislation that did not pass the North Carolina House, which has majority Republican. It's crazy. It's it just goes to show you that we, not only do we have to keep the Democrats at bay in Raleigh, but we have to, if you have a rhino in your district, you need to do whatever you can to replace the rhino and get somebody who's actually going to govern and create good conservative legislation, not the mushy, moderate, liberal, blah, blah, blah stuff. You know what I mean? And then Mr. Folwell talked about, he says that the 13th district has had good leadership in the party, but he also wanted to credit the state party as a whole and all the district chairs for today for making the timing of conventions good. And he said it was good that each convention they start at 2-hour intervals where all the candidates run for office can get from convention to convention, in a satisfactory manner. They can go from Yadkinville at 10 o'clock, Mocksville starts at 11, Asheboro at 1, Bisco at 2. The only thing is, though, my criticism, though, is the conventions are still not spread out enough for activists like yours truly who want to go to as many conventions as possible and attend them from start to finish. Today we had 6 conventions, and there are only 13 districts in North Carolina. Okay, last week we had 2. This week we had 6. Next week is Easter weekend. Nobody's doing anything. No conventions. And the following week we have 5. Okay, but remember, the plan of organization says that your district conventions must be held in April. And when you have Easter as one of your weekends, you only have 3 weekends, and then still 6, 2, and 5, they could have divided up a little bit better. And even today, you have 2 conventions, one in Raleigh and then one in Mocksville, which is a good probably 2.5 hours away. So you're going to have to choose which one you want to go to that. And then you have one way out west in Canton at 1 o'clock versus Asheboro. So that's probably like a 4 hour drive right there. You're going to have to pick and choose then. So I do want to give credit to Zane Bunn, the district chair of District 2, which is just southeast of Raleigh. she decided to put her district convention on Saturday the 27th. Okay? Now, why is that a big deal? Because there are already 4 other conventions. Well, she decides, says, look, I'm going to put mine at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. And guess what? No other conventions are meeting then. And I'm going to the 3rd district, okay? Which is going to be like an all, probably go from like 9:30 in the morning until probably like 4 in the afternoon. I'm still going to have time to go from Greenville to Smithfield and go to that convention because Zane Bunn did a really good job of scheduling. So, there. But Dale Folwell, most of his point about convention scheduling was accurate. Still, though, I think there could be a little bit more improvement with the scheduling. But Folwell was on the right track. Okay. And one more thing, he says his goal is he wants to get powerful people, get these hospital lobbyists, get them away from controlling healthcare, and he wants consumers to control healthcare because guess what? Consumers control everything else in life. I mean, he told the audience you probably know where the cheapest gas is between here and Winston-Salem, and you probably know who has the best coffee in the area, and said, hey, look, let's apply the same principle in healthcare. And that's what I like about Dale Folwell. He's a very intelligent guy. I mean, he was a CPA for many years, and got a bachelor's and I think a master's degree too. But still, he has that down home look. I'm just Joe, like Joe the plumber. I go to work every day for you, the people. And that's what I really like about him. Next we have the great, and I hope he wins, Jim Womack, running for chair of the party, of course. He took some time in his speech, which I thought was really awesome, to credit various people in the 13th District for all their talents, like Tina Forsberg out of Guilford County for her great social media presence. And guess what? Compared with the other 2 candidates, let me tell you something. Jim Womack in District 13, he's got most of the vote locked up because he got a standing ovation. Pretty much everybody in the room stood up and clapped for Jim when he came up to speak. Michael Watley, who was next, 2 people stood up. John Lewis, nobody stood up. But I will talk about John Lewis. Let me say this about him. I like John Lewis as a person, okay? To me, he's been getting better and better with his campaign for chair. However, he was running as vice chair before that, and just like a month before that, he just got voted into general counsel. So of course I have a problem with somebody who's hopping from job to job. But another problem I have is when he was campaigning for vice chair, who did he do stump speeches for chair? Not Jim Womack, no, it was Robin Hayes. Before Robin Hayes got indicted, who was the number 1 cheerleader for Robin Hayes? It was John Lewis. However, I like to be fair on my broadcast as much as I possibly can, and when somebody could be a person that I'm not going to vote for, but I'm still going to, if they say something really good, I'm going to report it, okay? Or if even they say something really bad, I'm going to report it too. But John Lewis said that adversity can build character, and he mentioned a story from the Bible about Nehemiah, who returned to Jerusalem and to rebuild walls, okay? And John Lewis mentioned this as the GOP needs to work together for a common cause. He says, we face adversity in the GOP going into 2020, but our conservative principles are strong. Now, I don't know if I said this in another video, but John Lewis, he has a lot of good charisma. He smiles when he talks. And he reminds me of a lot of a very underrated game show host from the 90s named Pat Finn. Now, what shows did Pat Finn host? He hosted Joker's Wild, the 1990 revival version, which lasted for only 1 season, and then he hosted Shop Till You Drop, and that show lasted from 1991 till about 2000, and then there was a version that lasted from about 2003 2005 that was hosted by JC Roberto. So that's your little pop culture plug for the day. Okay, there'll be a quiz at the end of this broadcast. Okay, so please get your paper and pencil and your blue sheets ready. Okay. The final candidate was Anthony Street, and all he said was, look, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, and he handed out a little a sheet of his whole biography and what his campaign principles are. Okay, now we have probably my favorite part of all the conventions, county, district, and state, and that is the reading of the credentials report. It tells me, it tells the audience what counties, where the people are coming from, what counties they're coming from, and which county has the most, which county has the least, and all that good stuff. Okay, so Davidson County had 14 delegates. Davie County had 5. Guilford, which is where I live, had 20. We were the big winners for the day. Iredell had 16. Rowan had 11. For a total of 66 delegates. Quorum is very low. I think District 13 must use a 25% rule, and that would be 17, and then the 2/3 majority rule would be 44. Now we had the officers' elections, and like most of the conventions I've been to this cycle, this officer election went very smoothly. All of the candidates were elected by acclamation. In other words, there was no voting, no voting or speeches taking place. People submit their names in a slate of the names, and they get voted in just like that. But we want to congratulate Gay Dillard, who's a nice lady from Greensboro. She is very active with the Republican women in Guilford County. She's going to be the chair for District 13 for at least the next 2 years. Her first vice chair will be Scott Klontz of Iredell County. Second vice chair, I did not get the name, but they're from Davie County. Treasurer Dwayne Edwards from Rowan County. Secretary Lisa Rowe from Iredell County. And Assistant Treasurer Joan Fleming of Davie County. So we have 4 of the 5 counties represented on this slate, and that's a good thing when you can get a little bit of everything from around the district on your officer slate. Okay, now the best part of today's convention was the election of at-large officers. At-large members to the District 13 / State Executive Committee. Okay, and let me see. Get my paper here. Okay. There were 23 at-large seats up for election at this convention, and the state party does this every 2 years. Okay, 23 seats. Okay, Guilford County had 7 members elected. Davidson County had 6. Iredell had 5. Davie County had 3, and Rowan County had 2 members. And this is all based on the state party has a formula. It is each county gets 1 member to the state executive committee, and then after that they use a formula. You get 1 member for every 8,000 registered Republicans you have in your county. Okay. And then there was a little bit of a debate, but it was decided that Iredell County would gain 1 at-large seat and Davie County would lose 1 at-large seat. So if we're sitting at Iredell has going to have 6 members on the executive committee, and Davie County only has 2. Because sometimes what happens is when you divide 50,000 divided by 8,000, you get like 6.2 or something. So sometimes that number is rounded down, or if it's a little bit higher, it could be rounded up. So some of these are not, and you can't obviously divide up a human to serve on the executive committee. So sometimes the numbers are a little bit, skewed a little bit, I guess you could say. And a gentleman from Iredell County made this point, but he was able to get a person from Davie County and make a deal from there. Okay. I'm very pleased to tell you that our at-large member selection for Guilford County went very smoothly. Okay, basically what happens is, and each district's a little different. District 10, what happens is the chair of the county had already made a list of names prior to convention, and they reported them to the convention chair. However, District 13, and I know back when I was living in Wilmington, down District 7, you take a few minutes and you caucus with your county. In other words, you get somewhere in the courthouse or the auditorium. You stand around in a group and you pick who's going to be on the executive committee. Well, this one very easy. I mean, there were seven members could be on the executive committee for Guilford County. Okay. And guess how many hands went up? 7. And let's see. And I will tell you, we're going to have a very good representation, I believe, on the state executive committee. Because guess why? Well, first of all, I got elected as one of the members. Yay! Okay. But also, we have another fellow young Republican, Alyssa Batts. She got elected. Yolanda Hill, who's an African American lady, and is the wife of the Second Amendment activist Mark Keith Robinson. And if you haven't heard Mark Keith Robinson's speech to the Greensboro City Council from last year, it is on YouTube. Please go find it and watch. It's only about 4 minutes long, but it will really make your day, okay? And we also have former Guilford County Chairman Ernie Wittenburn, I think. So that is 4 of the 7. I do not know the names of the other people, but still, it's going to be a good group, I believe. So what was I going to tell you? This whole, let me take a point of personal privilege here to say that this whole getting on the state executive committee has been a journey. It's been a journey that began about January 2016, literally 3 years ago. I went to a Republican Party of Florida event. Republican Party of Florida, if you must know, is set up very differently from the North Carolina Republican Party. Down in Florida, they have 4 state meetings a year. They do not have conventions at all. No county conventions, no district conventions, and certainly no state conventions. At these meetings, they last for 2 days. Usually it's a Friday and Saturday affair. Friday, you go to all these different training seminars and you learn probably absolutely nothing. And then on Saturday, you get a report of what you just went to. So Saturday is kind of a waste of time too. And you get a dog and pony show. Now, unfortunately, most of the good stuff is done in closed session. Okay. And at this particular January 2016 meeting, it was basically you had a report of Friday's events. And then every single member of the chairman's board, the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, everybody said, we're moving everything to closed session. Okay. Now, this closed session happened before, but the chairman's report, at least he did the chairman's report back in 2015 at the couple meetings I went to. So this is like the third state party meeting that I'd gone to in Florida. And finally, when I was asked to leave, because, if you're not, they can tell immediately. Because if you're in Florida, you register for the event, and they can tell you if you're a guest, you wear a red badge. If you're on the state executive committee, which is very small, it's 2 people per county, that's it. Okay, you get a blue badge. Okay, so I was wearing a red badge. Of course, Blazing Goalie, the former chair, sends his little ushers around as sharks, making sure nobody in the room is, it's very, very top down. Okay, I got, but the way that meeting went, oh, and by the way, I went to a 3rd district, the Gainesville area, had a meeting. Okay, the statewide meeting was in Orlando, and each district, they have their little, meeting the prior day. Well, I went in, and I made eye contact with the 3rd district chairman and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he just looked at me like, So that, and the culmination of Blazing Goalie and moving everything to closed session and abusing that, well, as I walked probably about 5-10 minutes out to the parking garage there at the Orlando Hotel, and got in the car, started crying, and I cried all the way home. It was like a 30-35 minute drive all the way home, and I cried, and I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing with my life? And that's how the ball began rolling to eventually decide that I'm going to move back to North Carolina later in 2016, and then here we are now, a little over 3.5 years later. I'm back. I'm on the state executive committee, and it's really awesome to be a part of a organization that is run bottom up. To where, guess what? If you're a registered Republican, okay, and you have the desire to learn everything you want about statewide politics and how the party is run, guess what? You can actually participate in the process. In Florida, unless you have a big bank account, and run for these little, state committee woman races where you have to go countywide, raise a bunch of money, and get elected to a job that pays zero, it's mind-boggling. It really, really, really is. So anyway, that is my report on the 13th Congressional District Convention for the Conservative Pelican. I'm Bobby Crawford.